Next up, we've got a 30-minute panel. We'll just let everybody come up over to the stage. The name of this one is A New Era, How Alternative App Stores Are Opening Up New Opportunities for Game Makers. And I will shortly pass you over to the moderator for this chat.
Hello, everybody. Oh, there we go. We've got an awesome panel for you today, following on from Paolo's granular analysis of the opportunity on iOS. So we'll take a bit of a step back today, but it'd be good to go down the line and just do super quick intros from each of you, who you are and what your company does.
Hi, I'm Chris from ByteBrew. We are a all-in-one analytics and live ops platform for mobile and web. That's pretty much it, straightforward.
Hi, I'm Sam, Director of Business Development for US and APAC for Aptoide. You've just heard all about Aptoide. I've been in the industry for 5 years now. Previous to Aptoide, I was in the publishing side, bringing games to different platforms. Now I'm in charge of bringing games to Aptoide.
Hi, I'm Shalom, Managing Director of our alternative store with Digital Turbine. Digital Turbine is an app growth platform. We help app developers to grow their businesses with user acquisition, running pre-install campaigns with carriers, monetization with our monetization solutions, and recently launched app stores, and we'll touch about it in a second.
Hello everybody, my name is Jani and I'm one of the founders of Geeklab and COO, and we focus on two things, which is the App Store optimization and specifically A/B testing the creatives of the app stores, and then nowadays also creative level optimization on the UA side.
Amazing, thanks everyone. So I think, as I said, if we could start by maybe taking a step back for those who don't know. Obviously the framing of this panel is, this new era, because, alternative app stores have been around in some cases for a while already, but actually because of that changing picture of many things that Paolo's just talked about, we're entering a kind of an era of new opportunities. So it'd be great to hear, maybe starting with you, Shalom, about just a potted history, I guess, of the industry and I guess where we're at now in its evolution.
Sure. So I think that, alternative stores is not a new thing. It exists since 2012 from the previous decade, and there are more than 300 alternative stores now. There's a big misconception, was partially justified, that in the past decade, alternative stores started mainly in APAC. Most of them were in China, in India, and app developers trying alternative stores in the past decade were relatively disappointed because the revenue generation proportionally was relatively very low. And that actually changing right now because of different things like regulation, like available technologies that are emerging, and the developers need to create much bigger growth. So we are seeing now alternative stores surging again, rising again, and the misconception that we're trying now to break is that, hey guys, those stores that are rising right now again, they're not rising only in APAC countries, they're rising in tier 1 countries. And there was a great presentation over here by Paolo over here from Aptoide sharing about the growth opportunities in different tier 1 countries, and this is exactly what's happening right now. And we see that in US, we see that in Europe, we see that in Japan, South Korea, and this brings to developers finally an opportunity to integrate and start growing the revenues with a store that they tested in the past, but now is able to generate sustainable revenues for them. Hopefully that's in general overview is helpful.
Yeah, no, it'd be great to hear. I know, so Chris and Jani, you're not so in the weeds day to day of alternative distribution, but with your, your businesses, are you, now seeing more companies start to ask, okay, what about analytics for these platforms? What about, optimization for these platforms?
Yeah, like as Shalom mentioned, it's not like a new thing. It's been around, but the knowledge about the alternative stores, it's being like pretty little, and then it's mostly focused on Asian market, or used to be, and people didn't know what to do there, but now it's being more and more popular to ask like what kind of things we should do in alternative stores and like how to use the knowledge, and that's usually also the biggest pain point for everybody, that when you're moving to the new places where you have a different kind of audiences, you need to act differently and you need the knowledge. So yes, people are interested for sure, but the pain point is having the knowledge what to really do, because there's not that many people who can share you what to do with iOS and Google Play, it's mandatory. People being doing that, they know how to test things, where to drive the traffic, what kind of audience. Everything is ready-made to you. But now, with the new ones, people are looking for the knowledge, but I think this is going to be the year that people start to share, have a case studies, and finding the ways to do with the new places.
Yeah, I guess just in terms of what we're seeing at ByteBrew, I think the interesting thing about alternative distribution right now is that, correct me if I'm wrong, because you guys know way more about this than I do, but it seems like it's largely been the domain of very successful studios looking for additional scale, where prior they kind of maxed out iOS and Google Play. But I feel like maybe like the market conditions, being what they are, have kind of level the playing field in a way where smaller and more medium-sized developers are starting to pursue these opportunities as well. Like partners of ours, Wizard Games, exploring Amazon Fire TV, and obviously when Unity had previously announced runtime fees, there was a lot of conversations about web. So I think it's become less about where do I find that last little bit of scale that I can't find, and more like an additional incremental revenue stream for even smaller, more medium-sized developers. And so I think to your point, I think that knowledge is really going to start to grow, because these are like the scrappy studios who are doing what it takes to survive, that are going to do so much learning so quickly, right? So I think it's going to be a very interesting time for alternative distribution as a whole.
Yeah, I need to add, I'm definitely on the same page that the big companies that have already made the successful stories and having hundreds of millions of downloads in Apple Store and Google Play, it's kind of no-brainer to also jump in alternative stores, because the brand is so well known, so it's a little bit easier to move there. But now we are basically waiting to them share what to do, how to do, and how the whole thing works. Because if you have a small game and you're struggling with the audience already, with the mainstream stores, it's not going to be easier with the alternative store. So yeah, that's definitely how it goes right now.
Yeah, I definitely think too it's important as you enter these alternative distribution models that you keep in mind that the player themselves can be wildly different. I mean, especially going from mobile to anything web, right? It's been a big eye-opener for me over the course of the last year or so since we launched support for web, just seeing how differently those players behave. And so you can't really just kind of copy and paste your work from one store to the next. You really need to think about the nature of the player in each platform. How can you curate your content for them? And so that's why obviously analytics is so critical across all your channels.
Sam, obviously, you're speaking to developers and publishers day in, day out about alternative distribution, and particularly, the alternative stores. What's your assessment of kind of where we're at now in the development of alternative distribution?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of developers are seeing the benefits of these alternative stores. Like Shalom said, I didn't even know there's 300 stores out there. I thought there was just in the tens of stores, which is amazing. But that just means there's a lot of work and a lot of challenges for these developers. But there are also a lot of benefits for developers. Each store has their own benefits. It depends on their market, their audience, and what the stores actually offer themselves, right? But I think the two key benefits that is consistent across all these stores is, one, market diversification. So meaning developers don't have to be so dependent on Apple and Google. They can find ways to reach new users, reach new audiences in different markets. And then two, that's consistent across all these stores, is monetization. So all these stores offer better revenue share, that's a given, than Apple and Google. But then they can also offer something a little bit different. So for example, with Aptoide, we have a loyalty program where we offer up to 20% in bonuses for users. That's how we incentivize users to our store and to spend more in our stores. This is great for users because they get more for their money, but this is also good for developers because this 20% comes from the Aptoide share, not the developer's share. So developers end up retaining more of the revenue and earning more as well. And each store has different unique features and different incentives for users, which is just more beneficial for developers.
And what are the kind of, I guess, benefits of alternative stores would you highlight, guys? I mean, is it, discoverability? Is it, the opportunity to kind of curate a less saturated market, and I guess more freedoms as well, potentially?
You know, there are, speaking about numbers, 300 stores, there are 4.4 million applications in Google and Apple, right? 4.4. It's pretty a lot, right? So discoverability is really a problem, and it's a problem for smaller studios. And we speak about the bigger ones. Okay, they have their abilities to go and continue promoting their titles, but what about the smaller ones? In this industry, when 80% of the developers are struggling, CPIs are increasing, and our pools are decreasing, we need to continue giving the developers an opportunity to continue growing. Otherwise, you know, it's going to be a very small operation over here in terms of app developers. So I think that, you know, the biggest thing, and we speak about innovation is important, is first of all, improving the economic model. And the revenue shares over here are extremely important. Now, those things in terms of innovation and discoverability, they're great. I think that the first and foremost, after the developer understand that they need to be part of this ecosystem, they need to start embracing the strategy of user acquisition. You speak about, you know, distribution of alternative APK. How do you distribute applications that have different billing model? If you use Google Play, then you use Google Billing. If you don't use Google Billing, then you are not able to reside in Google Store. So where do you go? Where's your home? And that's the biggest challenge that was actually up until now with app developers, because there was no option to do side loading. But now with regulation changes, side loading is finally available in Tier 1 countries. So if you build the right strategy around how do you distribute your custom APKs around the world, then I think innovation around it comes in the second thing, because you first of all improve your economic models, you start growing, and then, you know, stores as themselves, we will not build stores of Google and Apple tomorrow. They have invested billions of dollars into it for the past decade and a half. That will take all of us a little bit time. So innovation will come. There are a few things that, you know, that you just mentioned about giving, you know, benefits to users, giving them discounts into in the purchases, loyalty programs. That's all great. But eventually it has to come with one very strong economic model and scalability in regards to distribution. Everything else will come afterwards as we build this new ecosystem. In 3-5 years, the ecosystem of alternative apps, alternative stores will look completely different, and developers hopefully will benefit out of it.
I'd have to imagine too, like another benefit of alternative app stores, if I can jump in. Sorry, I sure wanted to add, yeah, but would be support, right? Like, I mean, show of hands, how many people here have had an app or an account suddenly deleted from Apple or Google Play, and you know, who do you talk to, right? Like, how do you even find out any clarity as well? This guy's right here. You know, he's got a face and a name, and you can message him and find out what's going on. So I think, you know, that's something that small and medium-sized developers struggle with a lot, right? I mean, yeah, we've all been in that boat. So I have to imagine that the support landscape of an alternative app store is significantly different than what one would be used to, the monoliths of Apple and Google. So, yeah.
But that needs to be taken in a pinch of salt, because when that company grows to 1,000, 2,000 people, then it's going to be really hard to reach this guy. So we need to create scalable solutions. I think that competition will make the work done, because they will grow to 2,000, 3,000 people. Other stores will grow to eventually competition. App developers and user questions will make all of us look much more competitive, and we'll have to give better service to our clients, because if we don't give better service to our clients, they will go to somebody else. So I think that's how competition makes everyone eventually be better in what they build and better service they provide.
Yeah, definitely. The competition will be the biggest game changer, because if there's only 2 people or 2 companies that are ruling the world, they are making the rules and they are pretty similar and the competition is low. But when the competition increases, then obviously the bigger benefits coming out, because people want to change and they want to get the developers to your platform and your store. So you try to figure it out, the ways to invite them. And when you have a successful stories and you start to get more people in, then the big boys need to start to think like, oh, we need to change. So the competition is the key, because if there is no competition, nothing's going to change. So I think that's going to be the biggest benefit in this case. But then when there's pros and cons, the cons are like the resources, that realizing like how to use the new stores, because we are struggling a lot, or struggling a lot with the clients, that when they are testing and optimizing the storefronts, they think that if they are testing something with the Google Play and they find, okay, this is the best solution, let's use it also in iOS. They are not same places, so you need to do the same work with the iOS and then Now with the alternative stores, you need to do it there, so you need to have resources, which is hard for the smaller companies for sure.
I think before we dive, and we will dive into the challenges in a second, but I think to crystallize it for people in the audience, there has been that perception of bigger grossing games, 3% revenue uplift or 5%, it can be super meaningful. Obviously there are games that will be more suitable currently for it to to be listed on an alternative app store, for example. But are we seeing that change? And is the opportunity kind of democratizing to more types of games and monetization models?
Since we're speaking about the economic model that improves the inner purchases revenue share, right? The first and foremost, and the immediate client base is the hardcore, the core publishers that have 80-90% of their revenues coming from IAPs. But having said that, it's really interesting because we see a trend where hyper casuals, where they're less relevant to alternative stores, are changing their business model to hybrid casuals, where you'll be surprised that some of their revenues are coming from different titles from IAPs mainly. So that's also an angle, but I think first and foremost is the core and the heavy IAP spenders. We have a theory that if they're a publisher with 70%, for example, in a purchase, right, revenues, 30% is coming from ads. Ads on alternative APKs, monetizing ads on alternative look a little bit different than monetizing on Google packages. Yeah, you have different data points, you have different networks that buying or not buying your ad on alternative APKs. Some of them think that it might be fraud, so there's a lot of education process over here. So what happens into your total LTV? Is that higher or lower than Google packages? So, and if you take an application that has more than 50% of the revenues based on ads, and you decrease the ARPDAU on ads, and just a little bit only increase on IAP, then you're not necessarily increasing the LTV of the developer, right? So that's a point to consider. This is why you have to choose application first and foremost that coming from mainly IAP-driven ad, and improve the LTV on the IAP side, decrease a little bit on the ads, improve overall the LTV, and start growing it. That brings also much more confidence to the app developer to start migrating other titles into the store.
Okay, let's do challenges, because everyone's desperate to do challenges. Obviously, we know there's this big market opportunity out there, which is, again, evolving more and more with each piece of legislation, each piece of education. But what are the challenges, both real and perhaps perceived, that developers are telling you about? Perhaps what are the real legitimate kind of challenges that exist in terms of accessing this opportunity, even for potentially those mid-core IAP games, and what are potentially some things that they've heard that might be a misconception?
Yeah, well, to add to your point, Shalom, the genres of games that do work well on our platform is these mid-core games, because there's an incentive for the users to then install the alternative app store and then to play these games and to be rewarded from these incentives, right? So that means a lot of the casual games, hybrid casual games, their users are less willing to convert. They don't trust apps as much. But there's been a lot of friction put in place by Apple and by Google. Paolo just mentioned a lot of them. If you didn't hear his talk, by the way, and you just walked in, I really recommend you watching it on YouTube when it's available, because he goes very in-depth into the iOS restrictions. But these friction points have been put in place by both these major two, and this then just causes more churn and less trust. But once this friction is removed over time, and they will be removed, then trust will naturally be built, and these users won't churn as much as they currently are. So we'll definitely see more casual, hybrid casual players and games coming to these platforms.
I have to imagine as well, just thinking out loud, but one of the challenges, I guess, kind of bouncing off your point, is just time, right? For smaller, medium-sized studios especially, how do you effectively manage all these channels, right? You can't just copy and paste strategies from one to the next. So probably, time is going to be a big factor. You have to be very strategic with your resources, especially in the market conditions that we're in. So choose wisely.
Yeah, and I have a big concern that when people are seeing okay, now other companies are going towards alternative stores, so we need to also do that, because that's how competition works. You start to see your competitors are doing that. So you are okay, let's do it, but you kind of half-ass it. So you just put it out and hope that something happens because you don't maybe have the knowledge or you just hope the best. So that's my biggest concern in this case, that yes, they know that there is the store, they know that, okay, we need to be there, but they are not willing to do the research and the effort that, okay, I still focus on iOS and Google Play because they are right now making all the money for us, and maybe in the future the alternative will be something else, so let's go there, just put it out and leave it there. If we are getting penny out of it, good job. So that's my biggest concern, that people are not willing to do the work like same way and treating it as a normal app store and doing the testing, doing the optimizing, doing the research. So yeah, that's my biggest concern here.
I would summarize it as 3 challenges that I see that the team over here shared. One is the understanding, is the knowledge, is the misconception that you can actually have a business, scalable business with alternative APKs, with alternative stores in tier 1 countries that can be contributing massively, slowly, gradually to your revenues. Second is the fact that you need to invest into integrations of those alternative payments, and for one studio it can take 1 month, for another studio it can take 2 months, but that's something that you need to invest and you need to absorb because you believe that the return and the outcome will be much greater than your investment. And the third one, which is in my opinion is the most important, is the fact that you have to have a strategy of distribution. You have to have a strategy of user acquisition in mind, and if you bring 3 of them together, then this is how those challenges are being able to be unlocked, and the developer can actually navigate, okay, this is where we're going. We have an iOS revenues column, we have the Android revenues column, and this is the alternative revenues column, and it needs to grow quarter by quarter periodically. And this is how they can diversify, grow the business, and this is the strategy.
And just to add there as well, the challenge of distributing to many different platforms. There is solutions for that already in place, such as like Aptoide Connect, Flexion, and a few others as well, that allows developers to distribute to many different stores, but not only just distribute, but to manage on consoles or whatever it might be as well, to make it easier to put your games and keep your games on many different stores.
Yeah, it's super interesting point because Jani, you flagged a potential issue of developers pushing games out there and not really doing much to promote them. But actually, as you say, Sam, one of the legacy concerns has been too many integrations, too many different jurisdictions to deal with the legal side on. Then and obviously things beyond that, such as the admon infrastructure or whatever it may be. But be cool to hear in our kind of last 5 minutes, where each of you thinks this is. Where's this all going? I know it's changing every day because there's different legislation and things like that in different geos all over the place. But 5 to 10 years from now, how is this opportunity going to crystallize?
So I'm going to go first because mine will be the least informed opinion. I'll let the experts go into better detail. But obviously, the regulatory landscape is what allows this to even exist, right? So really at the whim of political will. And there has been a shift in the political landscape as of yesterday. I'm really curious to see how long the regulation that has permitted the rise of alternative distribution, how long that lasts, right? Because it's very easy to cozy up to the people that make these decisions. Like these systems are in place, so. Each, the owners of the big 2 were in attendance, and that is a factor. Is Apple going to be beholden to the regulation in the United States? Is Google going to be beholden to that regulation? Is there political will to reduce monopolies? I think it's fair to say that it's possible that there might be less regulatory conditions that make it more alternative distribution channels open. That said, developers are really scrappy, and they're always going to be looking for those alternative channels. I have partners that have moved to web. I have partners that are trying Fire. I have partners that are trying making games for Epic. They'll do what it takes to survive because they're very passionate about what they do. So I think those are the 2 interesting sort of forces at play, the top-down forces, which are going to change, and the bottom-up forces, which are kind of that engine underneath it all the time.
5 to 10 years time.
Give me a market share prediction for alternative app stores.
Yeah. Well, Google and Apple definitely still dominate. That's undeniable. But I think their dominance will just be significantly less, which would mean there's more room for OEM stores, carrier stores, publisher stores, independent stores like ourselves, right? There's also going to be a lot more opportunity for direct to consumers, for developers to reach consumers directly. And the question, I think the most interesting question is, will there be too many stores? You said there's 300 stores, but these are, the vast majority of these stores are smaller stores, right? When we're talking about the major stores, though, some will succeed, some will fail. In 5 years' time, whether there's going to be 5 major stores that's taking up most of the market, or 50 or 100, I don't know. But like you were saying, Jani, earlier, it's better than 2, right? The best way I like to explain this, I had to explain this to my mom the other day when she was asking about what is an alternative store. I literally just said to her, like, imagine you're doing grocery shopping and all you had was Aldi and Lidl or Target or Walmart for the American audiences here. That would suck, right? The limited choices. So with alternative stores in the future, it's just going to offer more opportunities for developers, more choices, and more innovation, right? Which is only a good thing for the industry as a whole.
Agree. I didn't explain to my mom. It's complicated. I think that, 5 to 10 years, I agree about the legislation and the regulation. I think that this is a huge part of the success of alternative stores, but I think that this train has left the station. There's nothing that you can in order to stop it. You can why? Because of the forces. The forces mainly that are sitting in this room. App developers need growth. We have available technologies and it's moving. How they can stop it with different, political influences, I don't know, but that's definitely is going to move and continue growing. I think that there will be more stores that will open up developers opportunities for diversifying their revenue. I think that diversification is going to be very important. And what we will see, in my opinion, in the future is not necessarily a store. I think that we will see more and more D2C. That store is, in my opinion, it's a name code for, hey, I have a different payment than Google's payment. And eventually, I'm taking this APK and I'm distributing it. And it can be one distribution in APAC, in China, in India, in US, in Europe, different countries, and it can be another one in others. So I think that's the method that will go and operate more and more as we grow this industry in the next several years. Stores are there, but eventually you go out of store and you're exploring, and your exploration enables you to increase your operation, your revenues, because you are localizing your application with its payment to each and every country, because every country has different needs and different behaviors. That's
Jani, play us out. I don't think we'll have time for questions, but obviously feel free to reach out to any of the guys after. But Jani, take us out.
Yeah, quickly, 5 to 10 years, I hope I will be retired, so I don't need to know anything about the alternative stores. But if I need to know something, I think that there will be like a 2 or like a 3 bigger ones, and then there will be the smaller ones. So some bigger alternative stores will be like in a bigger spotlight there for sure. But then one big thing that we need to do is our evil vendors need to be also part of that, because people need to have the tools, on our case, like having A/B testing opportunities and the data analysis opportunities and everything like that. But I think that there will be like a 2 or 3 bigger stores on top of Google Play and iOS, but I hope that I don't be around during that time anymore.
Careful what you wish for there, but
Aptoide on the podium, right? Third position by then. Well, third position now, actually, probably in terms of users. But do we have time for maybe one question?
One quick question for
Come on.
We squeezed you guys in. Let's go. Let's get a question.
It's also lunchtime, so maybe people are hungry.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. That was super informative. And as I said, reach out to the guys with any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.